Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Topher Drives. It is below freezing out. It's before 10 a.m., which can only mean one thing. I am going somewhere with the Topher. He's over there in his BRZ, and I'm driving the 2024 Subaru Crosstrek Wilderness. Now, this is usually not the sort of car that I would film here on the channel, but today we are going to Holly Oaks ORV Park in Holly, Michigan to see what this new off-road oriented Crosstrek is like, and I figured I would shoot a bit of a living with the Crosstrek on the way there. I spent a few days in this car this week. I've lived with it, and we're going to talk about what it's been like on the highway, what it's been like in normal situations, and then we're going to go off-roading and see if this 9.3 inches of ground clearance is all that it's cracked up to be. Now, I've never been the biggest fan of the Crosstrek, to be honest. I've lived with a couple of these, but I think the Wilderness package, as gaudy as it is pretty sweet, and it honestly makes this thing look super proper. 9.3 inches of ground clearance. Under the hood, we have Subaru's 2.5 liter flat 4 boxer engine. In this configuration, makes 182 horsepower, 178 pound-feet of torque. We have Yokohama Geolander all-terrain tires. These are a pretty safe all-terrain. They're not super loud on the highway, though you do, of course, have to sacrifice some NVH over just a regular all-season tire. We've got a ton of Wilderness badges. We have a ton of gold trim, and I think in red, this thing actually looks pretty neat. So let's show you a couple little things around here, and then we're going to hop on the highway. We're going to follow the Topher there in his BRZ, and well, we'll see what this thing is like to live with. More Wilderness badges. Every door you open, it reveals more gold and more Wilderness badges. We've got a privacy shade back here, and under our, what I assume is a dealer accessory shade here, we do have a spare tire. Now, this is not a full-size spare, but it's nice that we do have something here to rely on. Spare with an entire toolkit, jack, everything you would need. We've got a snow scraper because it is a little bit frosty here in Michigan. It is, I think, 28 degrees right now, so just coping with that, wishing I was in California. We've got some aggressive cladding here on the side, more gold here on the roof, and inside we have what Subaru calls StarTex, and this is essentially like water resistant. I imagine if you go somewhere and you're really sweaty, you can just hose this thing out after and it'll be fine. But I imagine this material is pretty robust and it'll last a while. We'll have to see how long it lasts when people put lots of miles of adventuring and being sweaty in their Subaru Crosstrek Wilderness. I keep trying to call this thing an Outback. Fold down armrest with some cup holders. Otherwise, not too much back here. USB-C and A port. See, I've got enough room for my backpack. I have brought gloves today. I've been a little bit smart about this trip. Put that down there so it doesn't rattle. There is our situation up front. Let's take a quick look at this 2.5 liter before we hop in and get on the road. We have this bit of black on the hood, which, from my understanding, every car that has this, it's to save your eyes when you're on the trail. It kind of mitigates the reflection that you would otherwise have. There's our 2.5 liter, no hood struts on this $35,000 SUV, but that's okay. We've got this little prop rod if you were actually working on the car. No beauty cover on this engine either, but super easy access for your oil filter. It's right there on top. So pretty simple looking engine bay, and I mean, this is just very basic Subaru stuff. Sounds like every other Subaru ever. And of course, mated to our 2.5 liter is a CVT. And you can't act surprised because it's a Subaru SUV. Of course, it's going to have a CVT. But of course, it is also all-wheel drive. So I'm curious to see how this is going to perform today on some off-road scenarios. We have a Harman Kardon sound system in here, which is decent. It's not the best thing I've ever heard. We have Subaru Wilderness badges on our headrests. We have them on our floor mats, and we used to have them on little tags on the seats, but I think they got rid of that because it must have just been one too many badges. Too many badges because they were on the front when we had the Outback Wilderness. I feel like as a whole, this car is less obnoxious than the Outback Wilderness. And I feel like it just makes more sense because it's like a little mountain goat. It's a little hiking boot. It can just kind of skip along the trails and be normal. Okay, let's shut the door. Don't mind my protein shake or meat stick. The Chomps meat stick, not sponsored, but they're very good. Another wilderness badge when you fire this thing up there on the cluster. And of course, since this is a modern Subaru, we have our massive vertical infotainment screen with only a few physical buttons for our temperature controls, our front defrost, which I'm using currently and I used this morning, as well as our rear defrost, and luckily we still have a volume knob, and we of course have our hazard switch up here. Fan speed controls are at the bottom. I don't have a huge problem with that because they all stay in the same place. We have wireless Apple CarPlay, and this screen is honestly still kind of dim-witted. It kind of lags a little bit more than I would like it to, but for the most part, it seems to work okay. I haven't really had any disconnection issues like Subarus have had in the past, like the BRZ has, but overall, it's been okay. We'll be trying these out later. We have a snow, dirt, and a deep snow mud mode that you can put yourself into if you're going, I think, below 5 miles per hour. Otherwise, it locks you out and it grays them out, which you'll see here in a bit. We have heated seats with our Star Techs, and they get very hot, so that is a good thing. All right, well, let's relieve the Topher of just waiting over there in the corner. Let's hit the road in this thing and kind of see what it is like to drive on a day-to-day basis, and that's kind of what we're going to focus on here in this video. We'll do a bit of off-roading, but mainly, you know, people are going to be using this Crosstrek Wilderness to just do sort of normal things, so we're going to do normal things. But you can't film one of these and not go off-road, so. Here he is, the man, the myth, the legend. I'm gonna follow you. Can I follow you? Okay. Yeah, okay, yep. That's the BRZ Wilderness, the car we wish Subaru actually made, because that would be excellent. And I hope someday they do, because a lot of companies are starting to do these kind of safari versions of their cars. Porsche's done it, Lamborghini's done it, and it sounds like Nissan may be doing it with the Z. So that would be super cool if they did that. So from a daily driving standpoint, having lived with this thing for a couple days, it's super inoffensive, it's easy to live with, it's easy to drive. I do wish I had a heated steering wheel, because whatever this leather, faux leather, whatever it is, it gets super cold, and my hands are dry as it is, and they just slip right off of it. So I wish I had a heated steering wheel. I would pay extra for it, and you may honestly be able to, because there is a blank switch down here. I'll put right here if you are able to, and if I'm just being an idiot. Additionally, the seats do a pretty good job of supporting you. This StarTex material, while it does look a bit strange, kind of like a wetsuit, it feels pretty decent. It's a soft enough material to where you aren't disgusted to be getting in and out of it every day. And we have decent torque from this 2.5 liter, nothing surprising. This isn't a super big car though, so you don't necessarily need more power, but this thing would be super cool with the WRX powertrain. Oh, sideways action there from the Topher. Come on, Crosstrek. Oh, I'm not in sport mode. What am I doing? Oh, I don't think we can take this quite as quickly as he did. Oh, man. Oh, heavens. He's on all terrains and he's just flogging it. We are understeering a bit. And power. Try not to hit the broken down Mercury. Oh no, it's a Crown Victoria actually. Okay. Well, as you can see demonstrated there, if you carry a bit of speed, and honestly just in general, this thing does have enough oomph to get you merged onto the highway safely. Let's go back into intelligent mode. I think that's what I is. And we'll just start our highway journey here. But I'm glad you guys were able to get a bit of a taste of the acceleration and just overall performance here with the Crosstrek Wilderness. I'll give you a sec to kind of take in the NVH. Now, hopefully that's translating through on camera, but we do have a bit of road and wind intrusion in this thing. You have to sacrifice a bit to have this wilderness package, of course, in this Crosstrek. And a lot of that has to do with our Yokohama Geolander all-terrain tires. Like I said, they're a bit more of a highway terrain oriented tire, because obviously Subaru understands that not everybody's going to be just off-roading this thing all the time. So they do a pretty decent job, but they are a little bit loud. Wind intrusion also has to do with this thing sitting up so high. We don't have like a front air dam or anything down there. So it's a little bit noisy on that front as well. All right, let's try and keep up with this. Oh, can't keep up. Oh my God, and he's getting twitchy as well. Oh, hold on, Crosstrek. Come on, baby. Just turned into hooning the Subaru Crosstrek Wilderness. If you've come here for consumer advice, I do apologize. I'm trying to keep up with the BRZ. But honestly, like, once you're settled into this thing, it is pretty nice. Now, the real test will be once I stop recording and actually do a little bit of driving to see how comfortable this thing is, because while I did spend a few days daily driving it, I never really sat in it for longer than 30 to 45 minutes, so that's kind of what the test of today will be. Let's take a look at some of our driver aids here on the Crosstrek Wilderness. Of course, we have just traditional cruise control, but we also have adaptive cruise control. We can set our distance here on the left side of the right side button stack here on the steering wheel. We can adjust our distance here from the TOPher. Adjust it up here, it'll fall back. I usually like to use the closest following distance because the cars still follow far enough away. I mean, this is the closest following distance, and you can see here we have quite a bit of room. Set our speed a little higher just to be safe in case he speeds up. Now, we also have a steering assist in here. We have the lane departure warning off because it, oh God. Yeah, and I'm not the biggest fan of this steering assist. I mean, it's driving in 2 lanes right now. I don't know why it's doing that, so we're gonna turn that off. But we have the lane departure mitigation off there because it's very annoying. Subarus, they really like to beep at you for all sorts of reasons, so that's off to save ourselves a headache. I will say I do like the look of this vertical screen. I think it presents Apple CarPlay and everything pretty well, and it's also well in reach. It's close enough to you to, if you're going down the highway, you don't have to reach super far up, and I don't wish I had a controller or anything. It's all just sort of right here and in a good spot. Still have an analog cluster here as well on the Crosstrek, which also don't think that's a bad thing. All the information I need to change is right here in the middle, and that display looks fine. Yeah, I mean, it's a little louder than I would like, but again, you can't really knock it for that because that's just what this car is. Subaru will sell you a road-oriented Crosstrek if that's what you want. So actually, another thing I wanted to check was the fuel economy. So over the last, we'll say 150 or so miles, we've been averaging 20.8 mpg. Oh wait, this is instantaneous, okay. So over the last 150 or so miles, we've averaged just about 21 mpg. That's with a lot of mixed driving, a lot of filming miles for me for winding roads, so I was hooning it a little bit. So I would say in mixed driving, you're probably looking somewhere 22, 23 mpg. And on the highway right now, instantaneously, I've been seeing 25 to 26 mpg. All right, guys, I'm gonna settle in a bit here. I'm gonna drive this thing for the next 30, 35 minutes. And I'll throw the camera back on and I will update you with how it has been. Getting down here to our last 5 minutes of the trip. So, what has this been like to drive for the past 40 or so minutes? I know this isn't our traditional sort of road trip, and I'm probably just going to end up calling this a commute because Holly Oaks is actually a little bit closer to Plymouth than I actually thought. Hello, Emily. Anyways, so what has this thing been like to drive? Well, I'm not fatigued at all, to be honest. It's been pretty straightforward and nice. And I remembered this week this had some sort of an interior rattle in the passenger side A-pillar area, and I don't hear it anymore. So I don't know if that's like a temperature related thing, if it solved itself or what, but that seems to be fine. So there aren't really any weird noises in the interior of the Crosstrek. Additionally, I want to say that I'm actually a little bit more impressed with the Harman Kardon in here than I initially thought. I had it turned up pretty high on the way here. I was playing some of my usual style music, and it actually sounded pretty good. So that's a good thing, especially for a $35,000 car like this. Having a decent Harman Kardon, or just a decent sound system, is always a plus. So I want to talk about this CVT, because of course that's always a tough sell and a tough point for really anything, because a lot of people are scared of CVTs because of Nissans and having them all blow up, and just because of the lack of engagement with these transmissions. And I know that may not be a huge concern when you're driving a Crosstrek, but usually Subaru does an okay job with their CVTs. And one thing I do like about this is you do get a manual mode, or a little M mode here. You can slap your shifter over to the left, and you have paddle shifters behind the steering wheel. Now, generally on CVTs, these don't really do anything, but honestly on this Crosstrek, they're kind of engaging. And they do actually behave like a regular automatic transmission. And we saw this first on the WRX with the SPT. They don't call it a CVT, they call it a SPT, the Subaru Performance Transmission, I think. I'm questioning that now, but I think that's what they call it. But I'm not honestly super opposed to the CVT. I think it does an okay job for what it is, and it really calms down when you're back in the I mode, and it doesn't really wear itself out. The 2.5 liter doesn't make too bad of a noise. It's really doesn't, it doesn't give you a headache or anything. So really, honestly, exterior set aside, it's a pretty inoffensive car. I mean, with the crazy ground clearance, with everything that they've added to this car, it's still super livable, super dailyable, and you can blast the Harman Kardon and you don't even notice the NVH. So if you're a music person, get the Harman Kardon, you'll be fine. And this thing is honestly fine. I mean, I'm not saying I'd buy one, but this is all she's got. You don't really feel any of that torque until it gets above 4,000 RPM is where you kind of get that hit there. In and below the 55 mile an hour range, the NVH is not so bad. So that's good. But my elbows, pretty comfortable. Armrest in the middle, comfy. It's a little hard here on the left, but it has some give to it to where you can rest your elbow and it's not going to kill you. So, I mean, overall, I really don't have anything bad to say about it. The seating position's good. I've got plenty of headroom. So, then you can do this. Do some off-roading. That rattling is my protein shake. It isn't the car. So, let's get this thing dialed in. Let's have some fun here at Holly Oaks and see what this thing is like off-road. We may give you some final thoughts on the way home. It's supposed to snow, so we may give you some snowy impressions. I don't know if it'll actually end up snowing or not, but let's get settled in here at Holly Oaks and we'll show you what this thing is like in its alternative environment. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we are at Holly Oaks. We are in the Crosstrek Wilderness. We just did about a 45-minute drive here, and I promised you guys a little bit of off-road action, so that's what we're doing. If you want a full, comprehensive off-road video, of course, check out the video on the TheTopher channel. He's in the back seat. Also here with our friend Mike from Just Car People Things. And, well, we're going to do a small circuit just to give you guys an idea of what the Crosstrek Wilderness is like. Now, obviously, this is not a full off-roader. We're not going to do anything that we'd be doing with a Jeep Wrangler or a Bronco, but the 9.3 inches of ground clearance is still quite usable, and honestly, if you're taking this camping, if you're going on some trails to your campsite, you're able to have a little bit of added confidence with this wilderness package. So, overall, I mean, actually just driving the car out here, all of the inputs, everything feel pretty confidence-inspiring. This car feels pretty at home out here. And even on some of the more challenging bits, I think we only grounded it out once. And the thing that holds this back the most is the approach. And this is the challenging part to get into here, isn't it? That's okay.
You're good.
We're doing it.
There's a chunk of the BRZ right there on the ground.
Yeah, we just did a loop in the BRZ as well. It has started snowing. It's very pretty. And I think we're just going to stay in normal mode, honestly.
The snow gives a lot of charm to the mud pit that there were otherwise.
It does. That's right.
I test here of the suspension at a slightly decent speed.
Yeah, there are actually pieces of somebody's car right there.
I don't know. They're chunks of plastic just littering.
Yeah. But yeah, like Chris is saying, you can feel it's the damping is decently soft. And I remember we had a Wrangler 392 out here last year on this very section, and it was a little rough.
Yeah. They had to stiffen that up a little bit to handle 500 horsepower.
That's fair. Yeah.
We're still at stock tire pressures today. We didn't air down or anything. We did a much better ride if we aired down, but
yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah, we're doing well.
But I think that's important to showcase too. The capability of what the average consumer is not going to air down to go to down their 2-track to get to their campsite. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
They might not have the ability to air back up.
Yeah.
And so.
Traction control is a button in the infotainment. Boo! Yeah.
I'd like a refund, please.
It's okay. You know, the first couple of Subarus I drove with this infotainment system, I really hated them, but I think they've made a couple of updates. Chris, I don't know if you can attest to that. They've made it a little faster.
Yeah.
Do you think?
It hasn't dropped CarPlay as much this week.
Yeah, I haven't had it drop CarPlay at all for me.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other thing I wanted to add is this is the hottest heated seat I have ever felt in a new car. The only thing that got close is I had an E90 BMW that used to scorch me, but this gets super hot, so I don't know if that has to do with it, just the
material maybe?
StarTex being thin or what,
really
but
neat. I love the patterning on it. I will say,
yeah,
the interior bits, and it just shows that like they've really spent a lot of time and effort to make this not feel like a $30,000 car.
Yeah.
Right. You know, just the trim, the color, the patterning, the texturing, how it all feels, light years ahead of what kind of things used to be. And they fixed the eyesight system. That was the other thing.
It doesn't beep at you as much anymore.
Oh God,
that's the main thing. As far as living with it goes, and we talked about that a bit on the way here when we were on the highway without mud or snow on it. It's pretty livable on a day-to-day basis. So seeing it out here now, you know, after spending the day doing some off-roading, you can really do quite a bit with this. And I mean, I can kind of see the appeal, and also the appeal of the Wilderness Pack on the Crosstrek above the Outback and the Forester. I think that this is probably my favorite of the three as far as living with it goes.
Probably the most capable too.
Yeah, definitely the most capable. So just kind of a cool little package here with this car, and Subarus in general are kind of growing on me, which is terrifying to say, but I like this thing. Can we go this way?
Do you also have a golden retriever?
No, I used to though.
See,
I did used to.
You're genetically predisposed.
Yeah, right. All right, cool. Well, that's kind of all I wanted to do. I just wanted to have a small amount of off-roading here for my video. If you want to see, again, comprehensive video, check the video out on the TheTopher, and you can see what this thing is fully capable of. But with that, I guess that concludes the off-road section. And just like that, we're wrapping up our day here with the 2024 Subaru Crosstrek Wilderness. And I've got to say, I've had a pretty good day driving this car around. I've now been in it since about 9 o'clock this morning, and it's been a pretty good experience. I honestly think the biggest takeaway for me and the biggest attraction to this car would simply be the size of it. Now, this makes the most sense from a wilderness standpoint. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Outback. The Forester was a little bit better, but in this size, in this configuration, having something smaller like this lifted up seems to just make a little bit more sense to me, because it makes it just that much more usable. It's super maneuverable. The ground clearance, the departure angle, it all works super well. And if you're somebody that is going to be going on adventures, is going to be, you know, doing some light off-roading, this is a fantastic choice for you. And even going beyond that to the things that really matter, like everyday usability, you don't get tired with this car. It's easy to get in and out of, you know. It's not really frustrating to use. The infotainment, I think they've updated it enough at this point to where it doesn't freeze super often. I'm not dropping CarPlay like I would have been on a 2021 model year Subaru. Also, these Yokohama Geolanders, as you can see now, I failed to mention, it is now snowing, but I figured you all could have gathered that. They seem pretty confidence-inspiring, And just having this car for kind of like a year-round rig, a daily driver, it would do a pretty dang good job. And don't worry about reliability of the CVT. If you're buying it brand new, you have a warranty, of course, through Subaru. And not to say that Subaru transmissions are really what you worry about. Usually it's the engines in Subarus that go first, but no. Jokes aside, this is a pretty good thing, and I have actually liked a fair amount of Subarus recently. I loved the WRX that I drove last year. Of course, I really like driving the TheTopher's BRZ that's in front of us. Granted, he's modified it quite a bit. And I've fairly enjoyed this Crosstrek Wilderness. And when I say that, it's not necessarily in a bad way. I mean, this car doesn't necessarily have anything that's blowing me away, like this Duramax is going to do to the paint on the front of the car with all of the salt it's going to kick up at me. Why are you doing it? Why did you need to get over here so frantically? I don't understand. Anyways, what I was going to say is that nothing about this car really blows you away in the daily driving department. I mean, it is kind of just a car, which is why I'm not overly excited about, saying that I'd want to have one for myself, if that makes sense. At the end of the day, it is just a Subaru Crosstrek with a bit more ground clearance, but they've made something pretty decent here. I guess what I'm trying to say is that this is still a mildly cool, regular vehicle, right? Of course, at the end of the day, it's still a Subaru Crosstrek, but the Wilderness trim brings a little bit of life into that, and some gold bits throughout the cabin. So it's kind of cool in that respect. It's a little bit more usable, and overall, I've enjoyed my day with it. So there you go. That's going to wrap it up. I'm not going to be getting out into this dreadful weather. What I want to do is book a flight to California right now and leave. But that's going to wrap it up for us today here on the Subaru Crosstrek Wilderness. Again, a little bit of a different car than we usually shoot here on the channel, but hopefully you've enjoyed. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this car. I have lived with it for half the week. So that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you all so much for watching, and make sure to check out the TheTopher's video on this car as well for a more in-depth off-road drive. He also filmed the BRZ at Holly Oaks as well. So overall, a fun day, but that's going to wrap it up. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care. And the salt trucks are out. Look at that. It's over. The season is officially over. And we all have to get into our Crosstrek Wildernesses and survive for the next 4 months. I'm going to California.